Hello! Welcome to Waiting for Game, a podcast presented by Melee Stats. And we're here on a fucking 4-week hiatus. What are we coming back from? We're coming back from a little hiatus to have a big episode because we got to talk about the Big House. We have not only one of the biggest majors of the year coming up this weekend, but really one of the most stacked majors that we've seen in a long time, right? Obviously, just at the Big House are always the big ones, but really it feels like these past couple of years, like post-pandemic, that these majors are getting more and more people from not only the top 100, but also just like throughout regional PRs, throughout just like a lot of hidden bosses. So we are going to see some amazing stories here. We're going to see some amazing players. And to talk about these amazing stories and amazing players, we have some amazing people. We have people who are top players in their own right. We have people who are historians, storytellers of the game to here to talk with us. Of course, I'm talking about my good friend, Edwin Budding. Hello, Edwin. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I have so many words I want to say about everything that's happening this weekend, about so much that's happened in the scene since our, I guess, brief hiatus began. I don't even know where to begin, but I'm happy to be talking about it with you, Wheat, and I'm happy to be talking about it with two wonderful people in Zamu and DarkGenex. Just first starting with Zamu. Zamu, how you doing?
Hi, I'm good. I'm excited for Big House, just like all of us, and excited to talk about video game.
We love video game. And Justin, how's it going? It's been a little bit since your last episode on.
Yeah, I'm trying to get all those check marks so I can get my jacket.
Yeah, I think we stopped with the jacket. It's 50 now. It's 50. It used to be 5. It's 50.
We'll get there. But I'm feeling great. I feel like today I changed Melee for the better. And with the release of the Elephant Daisy mod, yes, I think that Melee is going to be on an upward trajectory now. So
some could say the biggest release that was related to Melee Online that happened today, was the mod of Daisy, but she is an elephant.
Yeah, I think I've been watching a lot of horror movies this month, but I think that was the scariest thing I've seen. It was very unsettling in a way.
Very unsettling. Yeah, I'm disgusted thoroughly.
I thought she looked great, but that's just me. I guess I'm just progressive in a way that the rest of this crew is not.
The elephant never forgets.
Before we get to all of this stuff with the Big House, we've got a lot to talk about with the Big House, so let's not talk about elephants any longer. But before we get there, just a quick check-in, because it's been a little bit since we did our episode. What was it? Riptide? Jesus Christ. It's been a little bit since our last episode, so we have a little bit to catch up on. And, if you are someone who's kind of been following Melee, following what's going on, you probably saw this. But for those who haven't, we are partnering with GG this year for the top 100. We're going to do a top 100 reveal. Well, I don't know. Not the whole thing. But we're going to be doing a reveal at the Golden Gauntlet at the end of the year. It's going to be very cool. I'm very excited. We got some fun stuff in the works. And yeah, I mean, it's great to work with someone like GG for this. And I really do think that what it's going to be is going to be pretty amazing. So if you like what we did before with the past iterations of it, I think this one's going to be a great one as well. But speaking about the top 100, it's wide open. Like it's what, October? We're in late October, and yet so many things can change. And if we're talking about events that are really going to set their mark, like make their mark and make big changes to the list, it's got to be the Big House, right? I don't think there's any event more than the Big House each year that like really is make or break for so many people. So we're going to be seeing that. We're going to be seeing a lot of people at the top who have the ability to go further, to move up the ranks. We're seeing a lot of people who could maybe just make top 100 because of this event by itself, just this event alone. Like the power of the Big House in regards to the top 100, I think is barely, almost unmatched. But yeah, Edwin, we've got a lot going on here. This is, we can talk a lot about, it's one of the most stacked tournaments of all time. We talked about that for last Big House, and Genesis usually falls in this as well. Do you want to kind of give some context as to how stacked this is? Because, we always say, most stacked, whatever. You are obviously a Melee historian. You've been around the block a little bit. Do you want to talk about kind of where this one ranks in terms of the other really stacked majors that we've seen over the years?
Yeah, of course. So I just want to put this for perspective, right? The list of people who can win majors every year is always shifting. right? It's, that it used to be for a lot of years, used to be like 5 people that could win tournaments. Really 3 if you think about the biggest ones, right? And just over time, we've seen that list grow into more and more players who are able to win majors or able to have paths that could help them win majors at some point. But I think something that we've seen as that list has kind of gotten a lot bigger is that it's very difficult to get people in the same room, especially at the top level. I mean, you saw last year, even the Big House 10, something that was considered on the spot, I think, for a lot of people, the hardest tournament ever, which is not unreasonable, but not as definitive as I think people put it out to be. But regardless, you had events that were able to get JMOOC, but they weren't able to get Plup. You had events that were able to get Plup, but they weren't able to get JMOOC. And this is something that we've seen throughout, Melee this decade, right? Since the pandemic, really, we've seen a lot of events where everyone happens to be in the same room, but then somebody DQs, or everybody is supposed to be in the same room, but then somebody doesn't fly to the event because they're sick or they get COVID or whatever. So when I say that this event is like the most stacked at the top level it's ever been right now, that's coming from a place of knowing that there's 10 people who can win majors right now, and for the first time ever, when there's been this many people at the top level that can win majors, they're all coming to the same place right now. Now, fingers crossed that there's no DQs or no sickness, no other reason for someone not showing up. But by the numbers, this is going to be this is probably the most amount of people that have been able to win a super major ever, and they're all supposed to be in the same building right now. And
for Melee.
Yeah, for Melee, yes. And
not even the same side with the Big House for Ultimate, but we don't need to get into that.
And I will say that even discounting that top 10, you got like 40 top 50 players that are coming here. This is if we're talking about offline events like majors since the pandemic ended, like since Summit 11 or so, maybe since Genesis 8, if you consider that more of like the starting point for offline events again, you're not going to find events bigger than this. We thought we saw it last year at the Big House 10. Then we thought we might have it with the Ludwig Smash Invitational. And I got to say, I mean, you got some killer matches happening just to make it to round 2 pools. And then within round 2 pools, you have so many killer matches. And top 64, I mean, you just forget about it. So I think, I'm not out of my element when I say that this decade, this could be the most stacked event that we've seen ever. When you take into account the number of people who can win majors, when you take into account the presence of all of them at this event, when you take into account even potential DQs, the depth of talent beneath them, I really think this is a one-of-a-kind event. Perhaps even more so than Genesis when you consider the top echelon. Justin, or DarkGenex, what do you think about this? Where does this event rank in your mind and in recent memory?
I think there's something more, everything you said, spot on, 100% agree with. And I think something else to note is that this year specifically, there have been significantly less majors as a result of BGBC, as a result of BTS, both ceasing to exist with major operations as of this year. There have been less events in general. So yeah, like in the previous years, we'd have an event with JMOOC and no Plup, an event with Cody and no Zane, etc. But there were more of them. This year, not really that many. Like Plup and Lepin both almost didn't make top 50 activity for the summer because of how seldom they attended events. For the first time, that entire range of players and Wizzy, because Wizzy didn't go to Genesis, the whole range of players is here, plus a stacked amount of top 50 players. I think it's 41 of the top 50 are currently here, plus a bunch of people who are going to be top 100 or who have been top 100 in the past. Like, a player who was top 100 last year, Eggy, is seated like in the 100s. That's just how stacked this tournament is. And in the all-time list of most stacked, most difficult tournaments of all time, it might be this.
Yeah, I think it's hard to hear us say this all the time, right? Because we said this about Big House last year, and Genesis always kind of feels like, if you just look at the top 50 or top 100, Genesis usually has a lot of those people. So it could fall on deaf ears if we keep repeating this, but I do think it's true. The reason why we keep repeating it is because events like this kind of keep outdoing themselves. I think the Big House 10 last year, maybe not the most stacked and most difficult tournament of all time, but certainly up there, at least not definitively. and like I think that this is legitimately a harder event to win, or it's an event that has even more talent. Now, Zamu, you are a player who has, you are what, top 50 2019 or something like that before the pandemic. How has this shift seemed to you? Obviously, you've yourself have risen up the ranks, but how do you view like the entire top echelon of the game now compared to what it was pre-pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many really, really good players, and it's so kind of pre-pandemic. I feel as though people are everyone people are much more. It's much more possible for the top players to lose than like ever before. And that's like really cool because it's also the top players are still like so much better than everyone else. And so I think it's cool that we'll get to, I think like when earlier when Edwin was just kind of talking about how like all of the people that could win a major are there, and things like that. I was like, I feel like that kind of thing bodes so well for like Zane and Cody, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think it's definitely an event that like couldn't have it just based on how Melee players' skills are now. This event like couldn't have happened a few years ago. It couldn't have been like as cool as it is because there was too much of a gap, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's not the case. We can see so much cool Melee.
Yeah, I think before the pandemic, we started to see a little bit of a shift, right? As you obviously left in like 2015 or so, and then you get Plup coming along. But really, these things all kind of felt incremental, right? It felt like one person was added to the list, and then like, oh, and now this year it's going to be Zane who could win, but it really felt like since the pandemic that not only have those players all been able to still pull their weight, I guess the ones who stayed around, but we are just adding people at rates that it wasn't happening years ago.
Rollback netcode snowballed Melee skill immensely.
And yeah, I think like it took a little bit for I don't know, for the scene to kind of be in a place where we're able to have enough majors. So I think 2021, we were seeing some interesting things. I think Polish obviously being a big story, but like in terms of actually who could win, it felt like a pretty normal crew. And then as we get to see 2022, a full year of Melee in 2023, we're seeing this number like get bigger and bigger. And it might not be like new people necessarily, but it's the combination of Jmook, new players like that. It's a combination of Wizzy, Plup, like players who are coming back from kind of shying away from the limelight. And I just think like, yeah, what you talk about, we always, the Five Gods, we knew that type of stuff. It really kind of felt like, and when you mentioned this, it really felt like three people at any point, right? And those three people could change, and it was probably Armada and HBox and someone else. But for most of it, it kind of felt like there's a very few, like the list of people who could win was very short. And now, I don't know. I think I could see Wizzy winning this. I think I could see Plup winning this. Like Leffen, fucking HBox, he's got a hard path, but he can make it. I think Mango can definitely win with his path. And then like that's not even counting the people who have won these big majors, right? So it's definitely something that we haven't seen before, and I don't know. I hope we get to continue seeing this. This is obviously a special event, and it will be a special event anytime this happens. But I do kind of hope that this feeling of everyone is here in the top 10 is maybe not as special. I hope that we get to see that a little more, because the idea of like 10 players who can win a major all being at one, I think that should happen more than once a year. And hopefully we're able to see that happen. I do think that there's a lot of reasons why it might not happen that get into the bigger socioeconomic problems, but we don't need to dig into that too much. We're going to talk about all these players who can win. We're going to get to that later, because as we mentioned, it's not just the top, right? The Big House is obviously a stack tournament at the top. Some of them probably, the most open field for any super major ever. But in addition to that, we are ripe for upsets here. We're going to see some Cinderella runs. We're going to see some crazy stuff happening here. And I think that, it's really good to happen at the Big House, because the Big House has represented a lot of things throughout its life, right? It's been this super major. It's been this kind of year-ending bookend with Genesis, but it kind of started as this big thing in the Midwest, right? And it still holds a lot of that Midwest energy. And Zamu, you mentioned rollback. I think rollback's amazing, but it does kind of like obscure regionalism, the ways that it used to be before the pandemic. So it's always good to see events like this that are able to really wear that like regional pride on their chest. You're like, when you go to the big house, it is not only very clear that you're in Michigan because it's super cold, but like the atmosphere that Jungle Guy sets up there, it really just feels like you are representing the Midwest when you're there. So talk about players who are representing the Midwest. Let's talk about some players who can make a deep run here, because I think that we're at a kind of a weird middle ground in the Midwest where we're seeing a lot of new players pop up, but we're not like a lot of the big names I think are people who we've seen established recently, and we're kind of breaking through that with like the ossifieds of the world coming through. So Edwin, do you have any eyes on like a Midwest players, or like any people here who can make some big runs, make some upsets, and kind of do what Ossified did at like Riptide when we all called it? Is there any kind of level of like that type of player that you see?
Yeah, so my God, it's so difficult to just pick one, right? Like you go through the entirety of round 2 pools trying to find Midwest players that could break out, or just really anyone. You're gonna be drowning, right? But there is one person that I want to mention that I think still qualifies as a Midwest breakout pick, and that is the legendary box fox by the name of Zealot. Now, the whole thing with Zealot is that this guy was super good right before the pandemic. Then during the pandemic, he had this huge glow up of sorts. He started dominating a lot of other players online. His whole reputation was just like beating the Sheik players super bad, but particularly with the style that just kind of like obliterated a bunch of them, except just Jason, I guess. But like he that was like a matchup he was really good in. He was also really good in the Fox Ditto. I remember the Z Foxes of Zealot, Zuppy, and Zamu all having these really fun sets that I would watch during like the Salt Mine.
Were they fun, Zamu?
Yeah.
Okay.
Zealot is one of my favorite players on this planet to play.
Yeah. And Zealot just, I think that guy is just insanely good. He was at Redemption Rumble, like right at the end of last year. And he's like a common name that'll come up. Like if you ever hear about it, the topic of National Arcadian comes up, like one that excludes the top 100, not just the summer rank top 50. Like Zealot is one of those guys who you see his name enter that discussion as someone who could possibly win that type of event. I think that guy is just like insanely good at the game, but he doesn't really enter that much nowadays. But it's interesting seeing him enter this event. Last time I checked the bracket when I was doing my preview for Monday Morning Marth earlier this week, I noticed that he was in a pool with Moki, and projected for a round 2 pool with Moki, Cop, and Preeminent. And I think, and the last time I checked, he was set to play Preeminent to make it to the qualifier, to make it to top 64. So I don't know if he gets a Preeminent win. I think that's pretty good. If he beats Preeminent, he's set to play Moki. Moki, obviously one of the players that can win this event. So that's certainly a tall order for anyone. But Zealot and a Fox Ditto, you never know. Even if he loses to Moki, he could make a really big losers run. That out of so many different Midwest players I could bring up, that's the guy that I think that's kind of slipping under the radar that could make a huge run here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Zealot is a great pick because he has kind of embodied that type of like could be top 100 if he went to stuff, and we haven't really seen him for the full year. I think we saw him oddly enough at Redemption Rumble, contentious event at the beginning of the year, and now we're going to kind of see him at the end of the year. And I really just think in terms of someone like that, if you give Zealot a full year of majors, a full year of regional stuff like that, we're that could very well be a player who not only he's in the top 100 but could shoot up it very quickly. I'm going to pick a player who, if this is who I believe them to be, I think that they also fill that role of like someone who's very known for online stuff and someone who was really made their mark in the era that we all couldn't leave our houses and has not really filled that since. And I'm also going to go with another Colorado player. I'm going to go with a player who is mainly, if you say their tag, it's affixed with the prefix who is, which I'm talking about Ultra, known as Acid. search any Discord for who is Ultra and who is Acid, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of a lot of pings on that. So Acid, or Ultra, I guess now, is their Fox player from Colorado. They had some really funky results in the like post Slippy. I forgot what Slippy was called. In the post Slippy age, in terms of like online play. I'm sure they had their pre-rollback stuff there as well. But like in the rollback era, they had some really good wins. I believe Acid had like an SFAT win or something like that, right? I know he took Plup.
He beat Plup
Yeah.
online.
He beat
It was
Plup,
a
but yeah.
I also
At
just want to
TMT.
quickly mention that I know I mentioned Colorado, but the reason I mentioned Zealot, but the reason I brought up Zealot is because he's also Ohio. That's
I
why
think he's no
that's why-
longer Ohio ever again.
But that's why I said like
unfortunately.
he kind of counts as a
he does
as a
kind of
mid-
count.
for me, right? Like
We're
maybe-
stretching
maybe
the
he does.
definition here. I'm also going to say Jello. And that's kind of Midwest if you think about it.
The northwest of the United States
Northwest.
is the Midwest.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, if you look at the globe, there's a whole other thing over there, right? Just because there's an ocean between it doesn't mean it shouldn't count.
Yeah, it's all relative, really.
Well, I mean, Alaska.
There's so many players to talk about. like-
Alaska is in America, and that's very far west.
That is true.
And if we're calling it Midwest, certainly Washington would count.
So Hawaii is pretty far west too, and I'm sure Dova lives on one of the middle islands in Hawaii. So
True.
is that Midwest?
I mean, I buy it. I'm down. I'll even call Pittsburgh Midwest. I'll go crazy.
They might be the ones that get most offended by that.
Okay, so I said Jello, I said Ultra. These players don't count as Midwest. I'm gonna say Papa then. I'm gonna give no explanation as to why I picked Papa.
There they go.
I'll just leave it at that. Zamu, you are actually a Midwest player. You're right. You are not from Pittsburgh. You're not from Hawaii, one of the Middle Islands, of course. You're not from Alaska or Washington, but you actually are from the Midwest. So I know that you have a lot of time playing a lot of Midwest players, a lot of history with this. Are there any players here who you have kind of picked out as people who might not like be known to the larger audience who are going to do going to surprise some people here?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't looked except for at my own bracket, and I barely looked at that. I might surprise people though. I have a good bracket.
True. And you are a Midwest player, so that would count.
Who do you think is good in the Midwest? No research, pure vibes. Tell me.
That aren't like obvious picks like Ginger. I don't know. Ossify, we all know that guy's good now. Shabo won't be
Ossify is fish
going.
bait into B-bats. I think sell Ossify stock right now.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
horrifying.
I'm buying it back after the big house. But for this second, I'm selling.
From what I've
We got-
learned, Colorado's just broken. There's
Yeah,
what, like Fishbait plus Ultra plus Zealot.
Yeah, if
Fish bait's
any
the
of them
whole-
ever go to things.
Yeah, Fishbait's whole thing is that like he goes to an event and beats like Mott money or whatever, then he disappears like a ghost for a while, then he comes back and then like he might lose to like Alberto or something, but then he like returns again to defeat Chem or whatever before disappearing again for like 4 months. Fishbait, that guy is I don't have it. I don't understand him. He also had that like huge Genesis run right before the pandemic. You guys remember he beat like Null and Kalamazoo or something? Like that guy's crazy.
Also, not a Midwest player, but
Yeah, so
This is actually the Colorado section.
God damn it.
well, Colorado's. You might as well accept them.
I should have never brought up Zealot. Why did I bring up Zealot? I was so excited to bring up Zealot because I thought I could sneak him by because of his
didn't
Ohio
work.
association. Now we're just talking about Colorado. Oh my god.
All right,
I'm
Zamu,
sorry, listener of this podcast. We're talking. There's a lot of good players at this
Zamu,
event.
who's your favorite player from Colorado?
Zealot.
Zealot. Okay.
Zealot. I mean, you could. Zealot's probably in my like top 5 favorite players. So that's an easy pick.
Sheesh.
Let's spend the next 30 minutes talking about what happens if Cyrox comes back.
Oh, that would be sick. I
That
think
would be.
there's definitely a bunch of Midwest players going to this event, and I do not think like there's anything crazy that's going to happen with Midwest players. Unfortunately, it would be cool. I'll gladly be happily surprised.
I
Yeah,
think
it
there's
feels
one.
like some people are kind of primed for interesting runs, but I think you're right. For the most part, Midwest is kind of this thing where like the players who are going to do well at the big house, we all know. They're all known on the big stage, even like the Ossifies of the world, I do think that there's not a lot of people who are going to have like a huge breakout. You have some people who I think can confuse people in terms of like David. I think David is a player who not many people know about. I think last tournament beat
Butter Donkey.
Yeah. Well,
David has a very just a bizarre arc. It's like he dedicated so much of his time in Melee towards defeating the great evil of Jigglypuff until it suddenly just.
Different.
That's
David,
a different
yes.
David. That's NC David.
That is a David who defeated a lot
which
of his
David
life.
are you talking about?
Butter Donkey, the Marth.
Oh, the right. No, that
he's
guy,
seen
that
it
guy.
pretty well here. I mean, he's
That guy's
had.
pretty
I
good.
think his last event was defeating O'Reilly to win, and the event before that was defeating Blue to win. So it's like definitely some pedigree there. But it's just like, I think my pick with David is, if you don't know him, Edwin Budding, then a lot of people wouldn't, and then he's going to confuse a lot of people. Free Balloonda has had like a sneakily good year of just beating up only people in Ohio, and he's actually Ohio. He's not like used to live in Ohio, now in Colorado.
He's an actual.
So that's something like that. But I think, Zamu, I think you're making a good point where like a lot of the Midwest seems to be in kind of a transitional phase where the players who are rising up the ranks are doing it like really quickly, right? Like Preeminent and Shabo and players like that pretty much establish themselves at top 100. Shabo's not here, but like pretty much establish themselves as top 100 threats really quickly. And now it's like, wouldn't be even surprising to say that. And then I think the like tier below them is just maybe not at the level where we're going to see like an immediate leap to that next session.
Eggy beat Moki last big house.
Yeah.
Real?
Genesis.
Genesis. Oh, okay.
Genesis
I was so
and
proud of
Genesis
myself for like knowing a result from an event, but I didn't.
I think that
Close.
was the one where SF said Eggy had like a 5% chance, and you laughed at him. You got on his case so much, Edwin.
I think I told him it was cursed, and I didn't want to think about it anymore.
I thought it was.
I was like mad.
In my mind, you called him some names that we can't repeat on the podcast. Anyway, Justin.
Hello.
You're a player who knows a lot about kind of the hidden bosses of the world. Do you have any picks that you think could really pop off here from the Midwest?
So 2 days ago, I was on Kadoran's stream for about 2 hours talking about this exact thing. So I'm actually very prepared for this.
Does he pay you for that?
No.
You should get like 30% of the subs that he makes from that time.
That would be pretty fun. I'd be down for that. But you did say Midwest specifically, because a lot of my hidden bosses or people who I think can make pretty deep runs aren't actually Midwest players. There is one person I think that it's hard to say if he's a hidden boss or not, because like most people don't know him, but if you're active on Twitter and follow at Etost, you know who he is. And he's got a really crazy bracket because people gas up 100 grand all the time. He's very good Marth, goes relatively back and forth with Ben and Preeminent, etc. Like, we know he's a solid player, but his bracket is actually insane. So he's pretty good against Sheik. His winner's quarters match is Dreffin, who has also gone back and forth versus Marth. He then plays Cody, which probably loses to Cody. But then afterward, if he does beat Dreffin and loses, he has H12. And then his next 3 matches are all projected to be Foxes. Like,
I don't think he's that good versus Fox.
Ooh.
Let's get into this.
This is spicy.
He's fine, but like as Marth, he's fine versus Marth, but versus Fox, but I don't know that he's like that kind of Marth. Like, it's still a good bracket for him. He still plays the guy with the sword, but he's not the Marth that I see with that bracket, and I'm like, oh my god, this is bad for those Foxes. I'm like, this is not great for him, but it's not
Ossify.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It's not like Ossify. It's not like, I don't know, other Marths that are really good. Let's keep talking about Ossify. Yeah.
It's not Fro 16 is horrifying.
Fro 16
for everyone involved.
That's a different guy. We're talking about Fro 116. What, Zamu, was it you who 100 grand hit that runoff dare on Dreamland or something like that?
Probably. He does that a lot. He's good.
I guess
at
that is not very specific.
He's definitely really good and can make that run for sure. But I don't think it's like he's just not a special Marth versus Fox. He's a great Marth though.
How's he do versus DK?
Probably terrible. I don't know. That's how I imagine everyone does versus DK.
Because before that, in order to get to
if he loses to Dreffen, he does play Mo.
In order to get to 100 grand, well, I'm saying, yeah, you said he plays Cody. I'm saying he plays the winner of Cody versus Mo, and I'm just going to float out there that we don't know who's going to win that.
So I did this kickstarted a brief discussion in our server that went into random like vibe killing territories, but I proposed the question: if Mo defeated Cody Schwab, would it be the biggest upset of all time? And I was met by like strangely like confident answers that it was like, no, it would not be the biggest upset of all time because Lovage over Leffen is the biggest upset. It's like okay, like a DK beating Cody, like you're telling me you're not even like thinking about it a little bit.
Well, DK is versus Cody at Big House. There is a history of that.
True.
Rishi's DK at Big House 9. That was it took a game, right?
Yeah, he rolled his eyes at the end of it.
Yeah, I think he was like, I was distracted. I was watching the big screen that was playing Muta King versus Hungry Box. Okay, Cody. So I think I'm going to devise a few ways, which I guess I shouldn't say here, but some could call them chemical warfare. I'm going to try to like keep Cody in a fucking hellscape, like a nightmare scenario where he like, I want to make, it's going to be perfect because he's got to get to Mo and then like crumble. So I'm going to try to work out how that could work. If anyone knows what room number he's staying in at what hotel, let me know. We'll try to work something out. Maybe you'll get a free Melee Stat shirt or something like that. I don't know. We'll figure something out. Anyway,
DK, just as an aside, because I know he's not really, it wouldn't be considered a breakout star because he's top 50 and we like know who he is. But like, have you seen Junebug's bracket for this tournament?
It's interesting. He could play fellow Midwest legend Jello.
Yeah. Like
Jello's beating Magi.
There's a world where Junebug, I mean, Jello could be Magi, but there's a world where Junebug beats like Mad Tyro into Jello/Magi into Sunsei, and then plays Leffen, who went game 5 with Ringler, but this time Junebug can just counterpick Sheik. We could see Junebug in top 8. I'm just saying.
Junebug counterpicking Sheik for the Sheik Ditto when Leffen counterpicked Sheik for DK is one of the most cursed things that I think has ever been brought up on this show. And I just said that I was going to use chemical warfare to make Cody bad versus DK.
You're the DK.
I'm mad that you brought that idea into the world, and yet I respect it.
Yeah, I respect the unhingedness to think of that possibility of Junebug finally being like, no, this is the one thing that will make me play Sheik against you.
It's gone too far.
Yeah, I will say I think the section of bracket with like this is a little deeper into top 64 and people that could make it there. I think that section of bracket with like Moki, Polish, Wizrobe, Fiction, and to bring this back to the Midwest, Flash. I think that is like the chaos part of the tournament. Yeah. I could genuinely see like any combination of those players making it to winners quarters. Like obviously Flash is the very big underdog in that, but I'm gonna bring him up because one, he's our player, and second of all, I think it would be a pretty cool evolution of sorts in his results for him to, you know, he had this big breakout at Riptide in 2021. He's had this series of performances over the last 2 years. He had a pretty solid SmashCon, solid Riptide, and then for him this year, and then to have him have this huge breakout of the Big House, I think would be super cool.
Yeah, I think Flash kind of falls under the weight of like high expectations because of how well he's done in the past, and he's got a kind of brackets that I think you could describe as, you know, maybe not the flashiest, right? I think his Riptide was kind of not really beating anyone that was extremely notable. In terms of like, if you're talking about people who are gonna like really up his stock in the top 100, right? Like this all comes in comparison to his Riptide run, right, where he beat Ginger pretty relatively handily. So everything is going to be like seen through the lens of that. So you get these like Riptide this year. was this run where he lost like really close to Lod, but still kind of lost there. And SmashCon, yeah, he had like Junebug and he had stuff like that, but wasn't really getting a lot of the big ones. And I think that this is a perfect example of a bracket that he could do really, really well at. Fiction is super good. Fiction, presumably going Falco, although we've seen the Sheik and Fox basically every week at Verdugo. But like Falco Master, like great in the Falco Ditto, and we've got Flash who like literally made his name by the Falco Ditto. So I think that that's like you're getting like two immovable forces, both like running at each other. And that's going to be a really cool one. And then whoever plays whoever wins that plays Moki or Zealot, I don't know. And I think obviously that's Moki favored, but that like whatever that is going to be a match to watch. If it's Fiction versus Moki, if it's Flash versus Moki, I think that is a very, very interesting path, and I think that is one that Flash is very primed to do well in.
Zamu, I want to ask you your thoughts on one particular player, and I like to call this player because I really believe this. I think Scherzo is truly the most random player in the world. I don't understand what his results are. I watch him play, and I don't really understand what he's doing, but it sometimes works really well, and he looks like a genius. And other times, I don't know what he sees on the screen to lead him to make decisions a certain way. And I think he truly has like a very I don't know how to describe it. Like I feel like this is his path. It looks like it's one that could lead him to top 8, or it's one that could lead him to getting like 129th. And I don't really understand it. But to cut to the chase, right now he's projected to play Leffen in top 64 round 1.
If he beats Kage.
Yeah, if he beats Kage.
Well,
Zamu,
these are big ifs.
Yeah, but based on your experience playing Scherzo and just understanding how he operates, what is his like? What do you think? Let's go through the list. Kage, none, Leffen. What are his what's his win condition looking like? And
rank them in easiest to win. I think Leffen is the easiest for Scherzo to beat, and then
for some reason Kage, I just have. For some reason, I see Scherzo Kage. I'm like, oh no,
he's 0-2 to trail this year.
It is true.
Yeah. I don't know. Everything you said about Scherzo, I was like, those are my thoughts too. So, yeah, I really don't know. Somehow, sometimes the way Scherzo plays just like lines up amazingly into how his opponents are playing or something. Like, I genuinely don't understand like how he beat like all of the players that he's beaten. Like, I'm not able to like. I'm just not able to understand it from the way he plays. It's like, how did you 3-0 J-Mook? That happened?
Do you understand how he's lost to the players that he lost to?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Anytime I've ever seen Scherzo lose, I'm like, okay, that made sense. But but half the times I see him win, I'm like, oh, so Scherzo has I actually do have some thoughts, I think. Scherzo has a very good tournament playstyle. He's very consistent at what he does. He doesn't like kill himself very much unless he's in kill himself mode, and then he just loses. He does like very high reward things where like things like full hopping in the corner are like generally not very good options to in a vacuum, but wow, is that good in tournament. And so like he just kind of plays in a way that that is like very consistent in tournament, and which is crazy because his results are not consistent in tournament. That's kind of like how I think about it.
Scherzo changed like my philosophy in how I evaluate results, because I've never seen someone like go 1-2 at a pretty big tournament where he, by all accounts, seemed like invested in his performance, and then defeat J-Mook in a month. I've never seen that before in my whole life. Like, I've seen, I've been watching Melee for a long time and playing Melee for a long time. I've never seen someone like go 1-2 at like a regional and then defeat a top 3 player. Like,
we were both at this regional, and so maybe you saw something I didn't see. I saw someone who was very invested in He's fucking beer, is what I saw. So I'm not surprised he went 1-2, especially because it was like it was included his loss to Trail, one of his losses to Trail, which now we know Trail is his kryptonite. So that makes sense to me. I do think Skurzo's probably someone to buy high on or buy low on for this one, because Big House, the venue, I do not believe. Oh wait, never mind. Take that back. I was going to say the venue does not have a bar attached to it, and the venue is not attached to the hotel, meaning you have to walk to a bar or your hotel to get drinks. And this is actually good advice, it is supposed to rain. So that might be like, oh, maybe he's stuck in the venue all day. I just remembered, I do think that there is a bar outside in the convention center, like not in the convention center hall itself, but right outside. I do think there's a bar.
I think you're right. If it's the
so
same
actually
spot,
buy high on buy Kage, buy None. I think just buy None generally. I do think that he is a player who
very
really under the radar has been improving. I think that you're going to look at the resume at the end of the year, it's going to be still a little underwhelming just because there's a lot of stuff in the beginning of the year. But I do think that in terms of 2024, I do think he's a player who could have a real return to form. But yeah, Skurzo, there's a bar in the venue, especially if it's going to be raining. Then you want to stay in the venue. And the perfect place to stay in the venue is at the bar. Okay, yeah, we might have decided something here.
Skurzo beat Ossify. You know how insane that is. He beat. This is the same year in which he, bless their hearts. The same year in which he's dropped sets to like Stango and top player Yasu. He defeated Ossify.
Yeah, do you want to know why? I bet that there was not a bar in that venue.
I don't even know if there's a non-zero chance that 2 beer Skurzo is way better than 0 beer Skurzo.
I've seen X beer Skurzo, and he looks like he has trouble just living life. But I don't know what X is, right? I don't know what number X is. I just do know that the word, the nickname Scares Hose was created to refer to Skurzo after a few beers. Now, I guess I don't know what number of beers it is, but maybe that's something we figure out, right? We're Melee stats, right? It's high time we actually put that second word to use, and we'll give Skurzo like 1 beer, test him out, see how he does. Okay. Give him 2 beers. We'll figure it all out.
Skurzo could make a run, though. That sounds very feasible.
Mm-hmm. Justin, was there anyone here who you wanted to we kind of talked Midwest specific. Was there anyone here outside of the Midwest, just in general, who you kind of wanted to mention? I know you mentioned a few people who, could do well, but I wasn't sure if there's anyone else who you wanted to mention, because we've got people, we've got international people. We've got like Mo, we've got Max, we've got people for thanks to Egg Dog from like all over America. We like Jello, we already mentioned. But like this is kind of the tournament where this and Genesis feel like everyone comes out of the woodworks to attend. So is there anyone else here who you wanted to give a shout out to as someone who could maybe make like a pretty decent run?
Sure. So I've got 2 people in mind. One of them is a more established player. The other one might be a little off the walls.
The Crimson Blur. That's the established player.
Maybe. Maybe.
Dude, never forget the Crimson Blur defeating Vaccine. What Michigan calls the biggest upset of all time.
Yeah, y'all are talking about theoretically Mo over Cody.
I think the Crimson Blur defeating like Armada's favorite player from Michigan is genuinely
favorite player, from Michigan. Let's be clear. It's not his favorite player from Michigan.
Yeah,
it's his favorite player, full stop, who is from Michigan.
It's genuinely astounding that Blur defeated Vaccine.
I didn't. Blur defeated Stab like a week after Stab defeated SFAT, right? Isn't that something?
Yes, something like that.
Let's not spend any more time talking about Blur. Justin. Oh my God! If Justin picks Blur, I'm gonna kill.
Wait! Really quickly with Blur. This is the last thing I'll say about Blur, and then we can move on. It's just very important. Right now, he is seeded to defeat Juggle Guy, and I believe it will technically be a rematch of their legendary camera match where Juggle Guy 2-0'd him and didn't give player cameras.
Surely this is going to be a money match, right? Like, so even if it's not them who puts the money up, surely there's going to be money on the line, right?
the most gambled on match in Melee history.
I know that the Mott Money, Egg Money is somewhat of a tag match. I believe the loser gets rid of the money from their tag. And I love Mott Money. I do think that Mott would survive as a tag. I think Egg as a tag.
I bet he changes it to Eggs.
Egg as a tag already exists, correct. Egg lowercase though. So we've got something there. Sorry, Justin. Who are your two players?
So my two players. The first of them is currently not top 50, but has been in the past. And we know he's pretty good. Lunar Dusk. We know that he got top 50 last year. Pretty quiet first half of the year. Very, very good path. Like for context, his path is Slowking, who number 1 in Iowa, number 2 in Iowa is Maple and Ices, who he plays a lot, so he's got some experience, but Maple's beaten him a couple of times. But I think Lunar is just overall pretty good versus Spacies. He beat Magi, I believe, 3-0 at Shine 2 years in a row, if I'm not mistaken.
2 years in a row.
So assuming he beats Slowking, he has the winner of Swift and Inky, which are both incredible draws if you play Ice Climbers. So he's currently like seeded to lose to Swift/Inky, but I think he'll beat Swift/Inky, and in a combination of that win plus Sunsei at Gamo plus Magi at Shine, probably locks himself in the top 50. So look out for Lunar Dusk. He might make a pretty good run. But I feel like most people would consider him to be a player who can make good runs anyway because he's already been top 50. So I'm going to bring out my wild card pick because I feel like this is a player who no one really talks about pretty much ever. His bracket isn't even that like incredible. Like his bracket, he could beat. He's seeded to play Flash in winners. He could beat Flash, and I know this is heresy because this is the Melee Stats podcast. But I'm talking about S-Deems. This is a Sheik player, long-term Sheik player on the PR in Georgia. But if you look at his results recently, like Cobalt has been doing incredible in Georgia. Like he maybe could be J-Mook, honestly. He's been doing crazy this year, beating like Mech, beating Joshman, etc. But S-Deems has low-key been putting up a pretty solid amount of results while not leaving Georgia. He's beaten the Swooper twice. He's beaten Panko
at 2 different events, right?
Yeah, at 2 different events. Swooper drove down or flew down to the Lookout, and then he also beat him at Tipped Off, where Swooper got double eliminated by Georgia, losing to Dusk and S-Deems. But S-Deems is beaten. I don't know if he's positive on all of Georgia, but I know he's like pretty even with Panko, taking at least like 6 or 7 sets. And I think that it's just like he's got a very good matchup spread. Like Georgia has a bunch of really solid players, different characters. Cop on Peach, Panko on Pup, Dusk on Falco, like Ostentatious on Sheik, Audrey on Fox, etc. And he does well against all of them. And I feel like for an up-and-coming Sheik player, there's normally at least 1 or 2 problem matchups like Ices or Fox. And he just doesn't have that. And the combination of that with beating a couple of top 100 players without leaving his region and getting a Falco as his first match, like top 100 match in winners, could be upset city. We'll see.
I think S-Teams is a great pick because he is someone who I kind of think like Balloon Day has no talk around them, right? But the results are there, right? You know, like there's definitely players who are talked about and probably have higher highs and you know are higher potential highs, who literally like just don't have top 100 wins. I think that there's players like I think people talk about JCam way more than they're talking about S-Teams, and if you look at it, I just think that S-Teams obviously who has the ability to play more top 100 players, but like has wins that like a JCam or a JCam level player just doesn't, and S-Teams kind of goes on the radar. Yeah, I think that's a good pick, especially considering Flash is very good and has I think like a pretty good set record versus Sheiks, and yet the sets themselves are like the classic, supposedly classic, apparently classic Flash sets where he like wins in a nail biter game 5 for some reason. I don't know why Flash has been doing that every set this year, but he had that like close set versus Dreffit, and then he had a really close set versus Ice King. These are both at the Ohio Melee Summit. So yeah, I think that, you know, you get a solid Sheik player in there, and I don't think that it's necessarily an easy matchup because I don't think Flash is an easy matchup for anyone. But yeah, that's a great pick because I don't think a lot of people will be picking that.
You also brought up Ice King. Sorry, just because I don't know how this didn't cross my mind for a Midwest breakout. I don't know his bracket. This is just off rip, but low key, Ice King has been doing like pretty well in the last couple of weeks. Like,
yeah, he
beating
did super well.
SE.
Good at the Ohio Summit.
Yeah, beat Real Thing at Ohio Summit too. Like, low key, I don't know if like top 64 per se, but I feel like Ice King is a player who maybe in a year or so could be a top 100 thread. Just putting that out there.
Yeah, a top 64 right now is very difficult just because the talent there. But yeah, I think that's a cool pick. Speaking of players in top 64, Edwin, is there anyone that you kind of wanted to pick out?
Yeah, so oh god, is there anyone I want to pick out? There's so many people I want to bring up, but I want to bring up the person that's on this show right now,
DarkGenex.
Zamu. I think your section of bracket, like from top 64 and like round 2 onwards, I think is really interesting. There's like you got you in there, but potentially Kwang or Asashi and Aklo and Crike are in the mix.
Yeah,
I think that's a pretty interesting group of players. I think you've played all 3 of them before.
Yeah.
What do you think of Asashi and sort of like where he's trending? Because that's a guy that was pretty good at the regional level for a long time, and obviously like is lately got the sponsorship from the Yard. Been trying to go to stuff more often.
I lost to Asashi at SmashCon. That guy is good.
Yeah, that was a crazy question to ask.
he does.
Oh, jeez.
He's really.
It's the Suppy episode all over again.
Oh my god, no! I'm not trying to bully her. No.
I lost to Asashi at SmashCon, and he's really good. I didn't know that like Asashi or Kwang was ever like possibly play. I guess does like winner of that play Aklo or something? Because I just remember when I looked and I was like, okay, I play Marth, Aklo.
Asashi plays Aklo, and then the winner of that plays you, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, that makes sense. And so I think that
Kwang plays Asashi, then plays Aklo.
Yeah, and I think that one is going to be that seems like a toss up for sure. I don't know. I feel like Asashi's really good versus Fox and probably other matchups, but and
oddly enough probably has DK experience because regular.
Yeah, and that's a really bad matchup for DK, but DK Kwang's amazing, so that's like a toss up. But then I don't see either of those players really beating Aklo, because unfortunately Aklo just is allowed to go Link against Donkey Kong. We saw at Coinbox yesterday. I believe he maybe actually no. I'm thinking about Aklo versus Rap Monster. It went 1-1 in Fox Luigi the first 2 games, and then Aklo won the next 2 games in Link Luigi. But I don't know. So before on the other side is me and Crike, and I think I'll beat Crike. So that's kind of my thoughts on that one.
Nice. Yeah,
and I want to. Well, I just wanted to say that I really want to play Aklo, because Aklo is so in tournaments, in LAN tournaments, at majors I have not lost to a Fox yet, and at LAN tournaments I have lost to SFOP and Cody. Those are the only Foxes that I have lost to this year, I believe, and I haven't gotten to play Aklo yet, and so that would be very exciting because apparently I'm good at that matchup.
Apparently. What do you think about Aklo and the Fox today? Do you have any thoughts?
I really like the way.
Any secrets?
I really like the way he plays. I think that he, I don't know. He's just really good. He's gotten so much better. I think I used to not think he was very good at the Fox Ditto, but now I think he's quite solid at it. He's become much more comfortable. I think that it is wrong to not play grounded as Fox. Like I don't think there's at least in basically every single matchup in the game, I do not think you can like reasonably argue that like you should be most of the time on platforms. Platforms should be like a thing you use based on being on the ground. And I think Aklo has kind of skewed his play more to like the platforms aid him being able to play the game on the ground, as opposed to before. I think he was like really using the platforms a lot. And I think that I'm just generally a player that is willing to ignore it when people are just like doing nothing. And so I think I used to be really good versus like Acklo's style. But now he will play on the ground and then play like aggressive mix-ups, and I'm like, oh, I can't just sit there and do nothing. So it's cool.
Yeah, he's definitely a player who came onto the scene really, really good, and that has just improved since then. It's really amazing to see. Speaking of players like that, Justin, I'm sure you're gonna have a hot take. I'd be shocked if you didn't. But who do you think here's the lowest seeded player who can make top 8? Because we're talking about 10 people who win the tournament, right? And it is one of those things where, like, we've seen super major top 8s, and I'm not going to say there's any free bracket paths, but I'm going to say, like, hey, that one year Ginger made it. He didn't beat anyone seated above him. Like, there are, like, very funny ways that stuff can happen. This feels like one of the hardest top 8s to ever make, because not only is everyone good, like, the top 10 is here, right? And the top 10 could all win, and only 8 of them can make the top 8. Who do you think's the lowest seeded player here who can make top 8?
So I think realistically, like, as in has more than a 20% chance. I kind of already brought up Junebug as a player who can make that run, but that's not a fun answer because we brought him up already, and we've already seen what he does to Space.
So as a player seeded lower than Junebug, who you think has more than a 20% chance to make top 8?
No.
Saying that Junebug has a 20% chance, but that's like such a big number.
Are 20%. You saying Junebug has a 20% chance?
I think given the bracket that he's got, yeah.
20%.
No way.
Such a
no
huge
chance.
amount.
20% is like a lot. That means that you think that
5 to 1 odds.
If you think that's
you're saying that I'll put money on this.
Yeah,
I'll say Junebug does not make top 8.
20%, just so you know, is saying that if the Big House 11 happens 100 times, Junebug will make top 8 20 times.
I think that if
Edwin,
he were to play,
I'm trying to make a bet here.
I think that if he were to play like Magi and Sunsei and Mad Tyro 100 times, he beats all 3 of them at least 20 times
in a row. He beats all 3 of them.
Let's just put $100 on this, and we'll move on.
We'll talk.
You scared him off, Edwin. Edwin, you scared him off. You're mad because you made a bad bet last Big House, and now you're stopping me from making good bets.
God, don't that bet last week. Oh
wow, was I on the last before Big House waiting for the game?
I'll tell you after the show.
No, tell him. That's all. We've talked about how that's the worst thing you could say on a podcast.
What was the chance that Hamza was going to win?
50 to 1, I think, wasn't it?
You did that?
All right, let's talk about lowest.
And you added to it. You were the one who added. You were like 50 to 1 odds, and I'll dress up as Yoshi, which you never did. We had your friend.
Yeah, no, I'm not a man of my word when it comes to dressing up as Yoshi.
We had your friend Yarn Yoshi come on to talk to Sunsei, but you never came on. Anyway,
you want the fun answer as to who could make top 8 in a legendary run, cementing himself into the top 100 this year, despite not being on the ballot right now?
Okay, I'm sure you'll think it's fun, but
I have it. I think it's fun. Okay. First of all, it's important to note Mog is DQing from this tournament. But we're gonna for this, yeah, he posted about it. But for this thought, let's just pretend he's still here. Because he's in Mog's path, okay? Ben has lost to Riche before. He's pretty solid versus Falcon. Like, he had a very good set versus Wizzy, but sometimes he'll lose. So let's say that GooseCon beats Ben, right? Just that's how this starts, okay?
Yeah, we're already taking a few leaps, but yes, okay. Let's say GooseCon beats Ben.
Then GooseCon plays Mog, who plays Peach, and Mog's not even going to show up. But even if Mog did show up, it's Peach Falcon, and GooseCon is really good into Peach because he plays Guava 24/7, so he beats Mog. And then he plays Mango drunk playing Dr. Mario, so Mango's not there anymore. And then he plays Acklo, who or Zamu. But in this,
so bad versus Falcon.
In this time, yeah, let's do that. So if it's you're bad versus Falcon. If it's
Acklo,
yeah, it was game 5. Literally had the game-winning hit and threw. And in that order, he plays all of those players and makes top 8 winners.
I do think you're onto something with the Mango path. I think that Mango is the best one to pick, not only because of very obvious reasons, but whether or not he cares about the game. The Eagles have a very big matchup on Sunday.
Oh.
And that might factor into it, right? he might kind of look at his bracket and he might go, oh, gotta play Wizzy. No, he want to play. I gotta play J-Mook instead of watching the Eagles.
That's extra bad. Assuming that Big House is doing standard Big House scheduling, a lot of the bracket is on Sunday.
So I think
top 24 is on Sunday.
Okay, never mind. In the past, it's been like more.
They did something where winners is Saturday, like winners whatever, winners top 20. I don't know. I think winners top 24 and then loser is, I don't know.
That bodes well.
I said a lot of words and then don't have any information on this.
If Mango had to play all of top 64 while checking his phone to look at the Eagles the whole time, not great. But he can deal with top 24.
Versus the firecracker offense of the Miami Dolphins.
The thing is, the Mango does good. Mango does well at Big House though, and like the Eagles play all the time. I think it's certainly a possibility that we have to consider, but it's not like Mango does well.
We're coming
at
off
Big
of the
House,
first
actually.
loss ever to the New York Jets. We have the toughest stretch ahead of us, Edwin. We got to play the Cowboys twice. The Chiefs.
I can't believe the Jets won that game.
Okay, we don't need to get into this. Yeah. Anyway, I think that Mango's a great pick for someone who could miss the top 8. So that, because of that, I do think someone in his path making top 8, I think, is a good call.
GooseCon is probably just a good pick, as in of someone who's like who I think is very skilled at the game and probably not seated very high.
I think the issue we have is that I started with Justin. Because, I would say, who's the highest or who's the lowest seeded player? I don't know, Polish? I would go very conservative, and now I have to outdo GooseCon?
Well, I think it would be very reasonable to say what player you think has a 5%, and I think that's a massive percent chance of making top 8 for this. I think that would be pretty reasonable. But also, it's possible that Polish has a 5% chance of making top 8.
True. Yeah, I think. Oh my God, Polish versus Craig projected in losers. Jesus,
heartbreaking.
Really be your own. Well, Edwin, it might come as kind of might not have the same impact after Justin dropped the GooseCon top 8 and the Junebug 20% chance of making top 8. I think we forget about that one because of the GooseCon. But who do you think is kind of a player? Who's the lowest seeded player that you can see making top 8 here?
Honestly, in terms of punching potential. How did that come out of my mouth? Just in terms
roll
of
with it, man.
Yeah,
punching potential.
It seems like a good term. It seems like a good term.
Yeah.
If you didn't say it, we'd be saying it all the time now. Go punching potential. That sounds great.
In terms of his ability to score really big upsets, I think Billy Bo Peep is a pretty it's a pretty feisty high 40s, low 50s.
Is he playing Falco or Fox?
That's a great question.
Yeah. Well,
Fox
I think
is the best player in
House.
the world. His Falco is probably not.
Yes, it's fun playing Falco.
But I think I think he has to play Axe, which is very that's a matchup we've seen Billy win
Axe
before.
or is he playing Axe, which is SDJ?
No, I think he plays I think he plays Axe before Axe's matchup with SDJ.
Those are both good matches for Billy, I feel.
Let me double check this right now. But yeah, he
I don't think that's correct, but
as far as low seeds with a non-zero chance of doing it that doesn't
I don't know why
doesn't require a bunch of stuff like insane things happening. I think Billy could do it.
Billy has done it, right? Billy has beaten Axe. Am I making that up? I think it was a Bemmy. I think it was the online Bemmy, but he has beaten Axe. He has Panko, and he has been really good at that matchup. He had the worst set ever versus SDJ with the Fishes to begin the year, which SDJ won. But I could still see, he's very good versus Puff. He could still make that happen. And then from there, that's how far are we if he beats SDJ? Because we're in winners. And he plays Zane.
Okay, I don't think he'll beat
Zane. I was debating. I was like, could I?
Okay, I don't think he'll beat Zane, but Zane might DQ or something. I don't know.
Maybe when I do Chemical Warfare on Cody, I mess up and I do it to Zane's room too. Or I get the
all right, never mind. I guess Billy's not my. I guess Billy's not my answer. I take it back. Never mind. It's over.
I think Lunar Dusk is a great answer. I think who else would we say?
Let's go with Chem. If Chem beats HBox, I think if Chem beats Khalid and then beats HBox, then I think he plays like
Amza.
he plays Amsa or something. And even
Amza
if he
kind of
loses,
own him at Trail Invitational.
yeah, but that doesn't mean he'll always own him.
True, true.
He could win, but even if he loses, he'd be further in the bracket to make a loser's run. Yeah, let's go with Chem. Sure. Chem will
I know she's not seeded low at all, but I do think that Salt has a really good shot here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to watch what she's been doing recently and not say that, right? Like online and offline, sheesh, oh my, she has been impressing on all ends.
Salt Josh is a very interesting. I don't have those two ever played.
Is Josh going to the event? I thought it was in Australia.
He was in Australia, but they have these things that actually you can get on them
and boats.
Yeah, they have boats.
Whoa.
They have boats. You get on it and it like dry. It's kind of like a car, but it's through the ocean.
Whoa.
And then it gets you to other places in the world. So
that's awesome. The more you know.
The more you know, indeed. Yeah, I think that's also like a toss up. Who knows? That's a really weird one. I think that Cody is going to be pretty difficult either way. But even the scenario where she loses to Josh, Panda's tough. Yeah, Panda's tough, but doable. Kadoran's tough, but I could see that.
My God, top 8 at this tournament where there's 10 people who could win.
Zuppy?
The answer is honestly probably closer to it's probably closer to the
like
group of players you're
Zuppy.
talking
I can
about.
see Salt winning that, even though Zuppy's very good for pretty good versus Falcon.
Sounds like she has to play against a bunch of foxes.
I hedged my bet so hard. I said Zuppy very good, and I said pretty good. Zuppy, you're very good versus Falcon. I'll say it.
You almost did it again.
My body.
I'll say what no one else has ever thought.
Started to say pretty good. Zamu, you heard it. My mouth started to make the P sound, and I was like, "What am I doing?" Anyway, the winner of that presumed set would play presumably Mango. Unless Mango decides that he wants to win and beats Leffen. So that's I think that's a really good path. That's a really dual path. I think if you're going to talk 20%, maybe that's something I'm more willing to give 20% odds to. It's insane. This is going to be such a wild, and I'll say it, 15% chance Zamu makes it.
I think that's crazy odds, but maybe 10.
10. We'll do 10.
Good. Yeah, but it's definitely possible. I don't know. I've done well at one major ever, and I didn't even do that well at it. So maybe I'm due.
Zamu at majors? More likely than you might think.
Also, normally at Big House, doesn't someone who's not a top 8 seed normally make top 8 like every year?
But I think that happens at like every major, right?
But like at Big House, I just remember a lot of like at Big House specifically, like Soonsay having that run, Fiction having that run, Bananas and Absent. I think Absent Page did. I don't remember.
Yeah, Absent Page being top 8.
Yeah. Like usually one player, at least from the top 8 seeds, like loses really early, specifically at Big House, and then someone fills that void. So it's more likely than not.
I think that the thing that's really difficult about this, like predicting this, is that I think in the past it was like if you were, how do I say this? I think if you were seeded in the past to like, they were typically like two.
It was easy as shit if you were a top 8 seed. I'll say it. I know you're beating around the bush. Back in the day, if you were a top 8 seed, you could sleepwalk to like winner's quarters. Now you can't.
Yeah, it's so much tougher.
This is the future that liberals want.
Like, God, like we're talking about making a top 8 an event that 10 people can win. Making a top 8 an event where only 5 people can win or like 4 people can win is just. It's not comparable.
But maybe I don't know how brackets work, and I think this is likely, but I feel like because there's so many good players, there's more likely that like someone accidentally cleaves an easy bracket path for someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that can happen. Those are it's crazy. Like the runs that we've seen to top 8, I think, you can get people who have really, really difficult ones, and you have people who, I don't want to say easy because it's never easy to make a top 8 at a tournament this stacked.
My God.
But like there's definitely like very fortunate paths, I guess is the way that I want to say it. Well, let's look a step further from that, because we're talking about the top seeds here, right? And I do think that's very possible for, like, Zane has Axe. He's been doing well, but that's difficult.
Zamu Cobalt?
HBox Chem is getting talk about HBox Chem. I've heard that. There's like a lot of really, crazy matchups that can happen. Let's just get right to the big thing, right? We're talking about all these players, but
let me run through a few matches real quick before we get into the real business.
Please do.
So my Eggdog teammates, B-Bats versus Ossify.
Wait, can you name them all?
I have the group chat open right now.
Right. I'd be very impressed if you could do it just off the dome.
Chango, like Jello, Wizro, B-Bats, Ober, Egg Money, KJH.
More?
There's more. Yeah.
Way more.
There's way more. Yeah, I don't know. Way more. But Spark. Duh. Cobalt. Okay, so that's actually funny. So Cobalt Zaid is a projected match, I believe. So Spark has a pretty hard bracket. Lots of Sheiks. Or Foxes rather. But sometimes Spark can just do it. But B-Bats versus Ossify should be a really good set. B-Bats has lots of close sets versus Kadoran and stuff like that. He's just amazing player. Jello versus Magi. I don't know if that, I don't know anything about that, but
Jello won he won like a pretty big regional on the same weekend as Gommel. He won it over Albert. He's in the ditto. Yeah, Jello's really good. Chango versus Mateo would be a cool match. And then as we mentioned, Mott Money, Egg Money. That will be a tag match of sorts, which is cute.
You think Egg Money is good? Will just go to eggs?
I think so.
That doesn't feel fair.
It doesn't feel fair because Egg Money's tag is like pronounced eggs half of the time, anyways.
There isn't eggs.
I thought you just said there wasn't there. So there's a lowercase egg and there's already an eggs.
There's eggs. Z.
Okay,
but you don't say eggs. You say eggs.
Okay, but half the people. So I guess there's the bit is that if Egg Money is playing hot, he's Egg Money, but if not, he's just eggs. But he already goes by eggs. But Mott Money, and apparently, I don't know if this will happen, but it would be really funny is that the winner does add an extra $sign to their tag. But yeah, other than that, there's a bunch of Ober gets to play against Hoborg and then potentially Crudo. Kind of a Florida match. But yeah, there's a lot. There will be a million cool Eggdog matches, but those are some cool ones.
Ober, the new number two in
Chicago. Over Scherzo.
Is Scherzo ranked?
Scherzo's 3, Michael's 1.
I did see Michael was 1, and I was like, that's cool.
It's also Chad to not go to this tournament for Michael. He's had a pretty decent year, and yet it really just goes to show you, as stacked as Melee is, as stacked as these tournaments are, it's really insane how many good players just aren't going to stuff. Anyway, regardless, let's talk about the players who are here, because we've got 10 players who we can win. I think you can even throw in, we've got more players who could, make really long runs. We've got players who Kadoran and Aklo have beaten, like if you give them all the people they've beaten, that is like a path to a major victory. Like it's not only the 10 people we talk about, it goes from there. But let's talk about the actual top of the bracket here, because this is kind of where we get into it, right? This is the big talk. So we've got I think one of the most striking things here is Moki, right? What do you guys think about? So Moki, a player who not debuted, but like had his highest showing ever on a ranking, top 5. And now we see him, I believe, is he the 10th seed at this event?
He's 10th seed.
Yep.
That is crazy. If you look at everyone else, like we talk about the 10 players who can win, I think that is like such a tough draw, because Wizzy versus Moki to make top 24 winners side is an insane match. Like Leffen has soon say that's obviously something that he had trouble with last year, so that could very well be trouble as well. But I think that there's it's really tough to find a matchup that early that is more of a heavy hitter than Wizzy Moki. What do you guys think about Moki? I mean, HBox Omps is in the same is in the same round as well.
Perhaps this tournament is stacked.
perhaps this tournament is stacked. What do you guys think about where Moki is right now? Because I think this is probably the lowest scene that he's got an event in probably a year, if not longer. Justin, what do you think?
I think Wizzy's a hard draw. I mean, their set of Riptide, like he had a lot of good moments in it for sure, but it's just a hard draw. Like if you were to ask Moki, probably like would he rather have Wizzy or Hbox or Amza? I'm pretty sure he never picks Wizzy compared to those two. Like it's just there are a lot of players that would be easier for him to play than Wizzy. Not that he can't beat Wizzy, he very clearly can. But it's just a hard first draw. And when the first draw is hard, it just gets harder after that. Like, I don't know. I like maybe his time has come. Like maybe this is the one that he finally takes a major. We saw it last year. Like it's to say that Moki can't do it or he can't win a major is insane. We know he's going to win a major at some point. I just don't know if it's Big House.
This is the hardest tournament potentially of ever. So it would be the coolest one for him to win.
It would be, right? We kind of did this last year. This very not to say it's going to happen again, but we did this whole song and dance of being like, yeah, Amsa can win, but it has to be this and it has to be this, and like we kind of picked like a perfect matchup or perfect like bracket that Amsa would have to have. And I think that like we've done the same thing on this show to talk about kind of the perfect bracket that Moki would need to have. And then sometimes you have people who just go against that perfect bracket, right? And they just do it despite the fact this is like way further from what I would consider the easiest bracket for Moki to win. And then even then, I do think that there's always a chance with players like this. Wizzy's particularly interesting because we just haven't seen a lot. We don't really know what Wizzy has to offer. He's looked amazing, and then he also did lose that set to SDJ. But that was a tournament that had Beat City, so maybe we don't really care. But it's just like the very few data points we have show him to be this absolute monster. So it's going to be a really tough one to see. I know that Wizzy, has this kind of like interesting. Actually, Zamu, what do you think about Wizzy versus Fox? I think like the historical data is kind of a little all over the place. But I'm just wondering how you feel about him in the matchup.
I think that Wizzy is so good at what Wizzy does. And I think he might not even be that good versus Fox. But it doesn't matter because most of the time, the Foxes just have to be so clean to where even if generally they're like outplaying him in the matchup, it just doesn't matter. And so you have to not only outplay him, which is not necessarily as hard as it like should feel for like a player of Wizzy's caliber, but the issue is that it just doesn't matter. It like you can be kind of consistently outplaying him. He has lower openings per kill, and that is so relevant. And he has low. Wizzy exemplifies the main advice that I give anyone that is trying to improve at Melee. The way to get better at Melee is to kill the opponent, is to take the opponent's stocks and not lose your stocks. And those are the things that Wizzy is best at. His punish game is so good, and his defense is so good. So he's just amazing, and like he's amazing versus Fox for weird reasons, kinda. He can lose to Foxes that are playing absolutely incredible, but he won't.
One of the things that matchup makes, or one of the things that is really just about that matchup is obviously that these two players both have the ability to win the tournament, right? We keep talking about that, but there is a streak. One of the best streaks that Melee has ever seen that is in jeopardy because the loser of that set has a projected path to play, or the loser of that set has a projected path to play Hbox for 9th place. Edwin, does the run continue? We have already hit 9 years. I think the last one was October 5th, 2014, Big House 4. We've already hit 9 years. He is looking for 10, the decade of top 8. This is possibly the hardest one to do it in. What do you think? Does Juan make it? Does he make top 8?
God.
Yeah, I know that this affects you emotionally because you're such a big Hbox fan.
Yeah, no,
it's
I'm
a hard
devastated.
question to ask you.
Yeah, it's kind of bizarre because I honestly think that like relative to the other players he could have been playing at this part of the bracket, I think Amsa is not that bad of a draw for him for like an 8 versus 9. I think now I think like the fact that he has to play Zane after that, even if he beats Amsa, is pretty bad. But I think if you're HBox, like Amsa is, him and Amsa is very competitive. Like they kind of they go down to the wire a lot. I think he's working on evening out that matchup. But yeah, I mean, if he loses to Amsa, oh man.
Well, he's actually fucked either way, because if he beats Amsa and loses to Zane, he likely faces the loser of Moki versus Wizzy. Now, let's say he beats Amsa, or let's say he loses to Amsa and then works through losers. He likely has to face the loser of Wizzy versus Cody.
Oh my goodness.
So he very well could be playing Wizzy Moki. No matter what he does, right? He could beat Amsa, he could lose to Amsa, and like he is very likely going to play one of those two, and possibly Cody even.
But
my goodness, I think it might.
Because you know me, you know
Justin,
what I'm going to say to this.
He plays GooseCon for top 8.
No,
and loses.
That would be sick, but no, because in their last 3 sets, HBox has beaten Moki twice. This Demon Fox problem that HBox has is not real. It's a meme. He beat Cody the last time they played. He's beaten Moki 2 of the last 3 times they played. When people say he cannot beat Zane, he's taken Zane game 5, 2 of their last sets. He was inches away, literal frames off of beating Zane 3-1 at SmashCon, and he missed the rest. But he could very clearly do it. To say that HBox is like doomed and that he is in this devil bracket, like Wizzy, no, he's screwed. He's not beating Wizzy. But everyone else out of the top 10, he can do it.
But Justin, the question is not if he can do it in a vacuum. It's will he, or is it likely to happen? I don't know. I think like if his best chance is to make top 8 is to beat Moki for 9th, that's probably his most like favorable realistic thing. Or maybe Zane loses to Axe, he beats Amsa, and then beats Axe to make top 8. I think if HBox makes top 8, that's got to be it. I don't think
I think you're a big doubter.
Yeah, I'm
Big Juan is one of the most dedicated men in Melee, right? He is a person who has this type of drive and confidence that we rarely see from other players. And that drive and confidence used to be for winning tournaments. And right now it's for making top 8. I really don't like, I'm going to say he beats Wizzy to make top 8. And we all go, what? Right? We all see that he's about to play Wizzy, and we go, it's over. The streak is over. Guess what? Evo 1 pops back up, beats Wizzy 3-1, immediately loses to whoever he plays. For 7th place, immediately loses. He's out of there.
I do like the I do think that it's just correct that when HBox does really well or surprises you, it usually does come out either in a very stupid way or when there's no reason for it to happen. So on that note, I guess I can kind of buy into him just suddenly 3-0ing or 3-1ing Wizarov out of nowhere and then just immediately losing.
Well, the immediately losing part is important because he just had the best run of the year last term he went to, right? It was SmashCon. He got second, like Justin said, nearly resetting on Zane. And it's like, well, if he does well 2 tournaments in a row, that's a trend, and suddenly we have to talk about his HBox back, and yet he has not operated like that this year, right? So it would work better for HBox if he beat Wizzy to make top 8 and then just suddenly lost to like Mango, or I guess not Mango, lost to Kadoran or whatever. Salt, maybe. Yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting thing to look out for as the top 8 run. Edwin, do you think he's going to win? What do you think about HBox's chances to win at all? I know that he has a really difficult path to even make it that far.
So earlier this week in my column, I did kind of rough overviews of ranking the players and how likely I saw them to win the event. And I think my bottom tier is like, okay, I'm actually looking at it right now. Yeah, it was HBox, Amsa, Plup, and Moki. I think have like they have chances to win the event, but I think those 4, it's significantly lower than the people above them. I think Just my perspective on it. If I can just kind of go bullet point by bullet, or just like quick bullet points for each of them. I think HBox is just like his matchup spread in the top 10 is really bad by the numbers. Like long term, like if you look at his like last 5 sets versus like each of these people, and just see kind of how his rivalries or dynamics versus each of them are trending. I don't think they're very good. I think his focus is clearly not on competing this year. Maybe that changes for the big house just to preserve his top 8 streak. But if we're talking about chances to win the event, I think he's pretty clearly near the bottom. We talked about Moki having a really difficult path before. I think Amsa's got it. I mean, in general, I think if there's like 3 people that you need to dodge or like need to change something fundamental against in order to beat them, I think that really hurts your chances of winning the tournament. So I think like one thing that these players have in common, except for Plup, I guess, is that like if they it's kind of like a version of like the HBox Armada rule, where like if you lost to both of them, like, or if you didn't have a chance of beating at least one of them, you were never going to win a major. I think to have 3 of them in a bracket is like quite hard, and I think each of those players have 3 of them except Plup, but I don't think Plup has any like particularly favorable like amazing matchups within the top 10 other than like maybe Wizzy, or I guess Wizzy. So I think those 4 are in the like doable territory for winning the event, but I think they're significantly lower than the other people attending.
Who do you got winning?
I got Zane.
Oh my god, of course you do.
I think Zane, Cody, and Jmook are like the same way that I mentioned that group before of like who I think kind of needed the most breaks to win the event. I think Zane, Cody, and Jmook, I would take one member of those 3 over the field, like probably like a slight margin. And this goes back to something that Zamu mentioned earlier, which is that I think that like while the range of players and like their ability to upset each other is certainly like bigger or more, or those kind of ranges intersect a lot more today than they used to in the past. I do think that like I still think that the ranges themselves in terms of like where like if you put the ranges of like possible results for like all 100 players or all like 1,000 players at this event or whatever, I do think you can still like cluster people like pretty concretely, and I think that really shows with people like Zane, Cody, and Jmook. I think those 3 are like, if we're being real, like the real contenders to win the event. And that's not like discrediting the other 7 of the 10. I think this is still a really stacked tournament. I think any of those 10 could win. I'm not going to make the same 50-1 mistake that I made last year. But so I want to be clear. Like I think any of these 10 can win, but I think within the 10 there's like 3 very very certain like or like 3 distinct favorites, even if it's not necessarily a big gap between them and everyone else. It's just one that's noticeable if you look at their projected bracket paths, if you look at their set history, just kind of how they're trending as players. So between Zane, Cody, Jmook, I'll probably go with Zane. I just think he's really steady.
A Jmook believer in October 2023. Wild. Anyway, condolences on Zane for losing the big house. What's your record on predicting his wins this year?
I'm like, I haven't gotten the only major I've predicted correctly was it wasn't even in my column. It was on the show, and I said Cody would win major upset. I've gotten every single
Which
other
feels like
wrong.
Of all the ones to pick.
Yeah, it's like it's not. It's like cheating.
Obviously, it wasn't an easy victory, but yeah, that one feels like kind of the easiest call to make. So condolences on Zane for the curse of Edwin Budding. The curse of Rob.
I don't know why. It's just like it's like the moment I'm like deliberately going with the safe pick, and it's still not.
And every time you've been punished, and then when you get a little kooky crazy is when Zane wins. Zamu, what do you think? Obviously it's really tough to pick anyone who can win, but who do you see here?
I would love 11 win, but I am going to go with Cody because I agree with Edwin that like I think it's like Zane and Cody, and then Jmook is like a tier below that, like a relatively significant tier below that, but the tier below that is just even more significant of a drop. But I feel like it's a little. I feel as though Cody and Zane are a notable amount ahead of Jmook, kinda. and then Jmook is also just that guy. But I'll go with Cody. Would love to see.
It's so wild though, isn't it, Zamu? Like the fact that we're acknowledging how volatile the field is, and yet like with all these people at the event, you know, when our presumptive chips are on the line, we're picking one of Zayn or Cody.
Oh yeah.
Well, we've talked. How many times have we talked on this podcast all like about how Zayn and Cody just the chances they have to win are it just is better than everyone else.
Yeah.
Straight up, like Cody's hardest opponent is Zayn, and that's a guy who he probably beats half the time. That's great. I mean, obviously he can lose to these other people, and he can lose to people outside of that top 10 more than like Zayn has. But if you just talk about like straight up, what are his percentages? He probably has the best looking set like matchup spread across the top level of these players. Yeah. And then you look at Zayn. Zayn's this whole thing where we talk about how it's basically coin flips every single player, right? Like maybe he could lose to Zayn or Cody. He could lose to Jmook. He could lose to Lefty. He could lose to Amsa. All these players, and like you can even throw in like an HBox or a Mango, people who are not favored but have beaten him and have shown that like they could just get washed time after time and then come back and beat him. Like we've seen these happen. We've seen this happen on the big stage at Big House before. I mean, Zayn's never won a Big House unless I'm blanking. No, Zayn's never won a Big House.
No, it never happened.
So like this is very likely. Sorry, not very likely. It's very possible that we could see something like that happen. But like yeah, you talk about it. Zayn gets these coin flips right a lot of the time. There's a lot of the time he is beating all these players at the same exact time. Even if he has like 50-50 shots against each one of them. So I think him and Cody are like head and shoulders above everyone else when you talk about just like ability or like, you know, who wins the tournament the most times. You throw the tournament 100 times, I think they win the most. But we're only throwing it once. So yeah. So we will see. Justin, who do you think? What's your hot take? GooseCon is in grand finals, but gets upset by Lunar Dusk or something.
You know, it happens. But and they play Icy's Dittos and then Ganon Dittos. That's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
So
why do they play Ganon Dittos? Why do you got to bring that into this?
What do you mean? I remember the I think Wheat posted it once where it was like if DarkGenex had the melee script, it would be like people playing Ganon Dittos in grands every tournament. And it's the callback. So my actual answer, which is the boring answer, is it's basically what Edwin said, except replace Jmook with Plup. If you look at Plup's last couple of tournaments, or sorry, let's talk about Jmook. Jmook has underperformed at 3 of his last 4 tournaments. If you don't count off season, if you do, it's 4 out of his last 5. 7th at 2 majors, 33rd at another major. Not exactly the best look for him, and he's also like in the process of moving, and I think there's other stuff going on. And it's definitely just not the same player as as he was in the first couple of months of the year by pure results. Like we know he's a really skilled player, 100%, one of the best to ever do it. But like if you take his first half of the year, where he was like top 3 candidate easily, maybe even 1, like he was in the contention for number 1. If you look at only his second half of the year, he might not even be 10. And it's a shame because he's such a good player, but like, you have to take all of the year into account. And with the last, like with Big House, his recent results have just not been great. And I don't think like he's got a pretty solid bracket, don't get me wrong. But if you look at Plup's results, where he has gotten 1st, 2nd, 4th, mostly beating Wizzy, but Wizzy takes on all the other people to get to him. Like he's still good. We know that Plup's really good too, and he can do well. At the end of the day, it's Cody and Zayn are the 2 players who are most likely to win Big House, and more than likely it is one of them. Probably like 80% to 90% one of those 2 wins Big House. But something always happens that's magical at the Big House because we never expect it. Mm-hmm. There's always one tournament in the year where something crazy happens, like Moki's incredible run to ascending to the top 10, Amza making the Cinderella run to win Big House. And I think it's about time that we go back to our roots. I think that HBox or Mango will win the Big House. I don't know which one it'll be. Oh, that would be. He didn't even enter. I don't think he's going.
But that would be Big House roots.
That would be because he did win a Big House. But it's like the SFAT winning LACS.
True.
The first LACS. But I genuinely believe that either HBox or Mango will win Big House and go against the odds. One of those two is going to have the dream run. I mean, you see it. Mango's bracket is crazy. HBox, with the exception of 2021 Mickey Mouse year, he has won a major every year he's played the game, except for this one. Mm-hmm. And remember when he inexplicably won Gommel, or when he inexplicably won Riptide? Granted, SJ did beat Zayn at that Riptide, but it's like you can't ever count out HBox and you can't ever count out Mango. And if they're both here, they both want it. The one thing I want to say about HBox is the last defense for him. He entered a local last week.
Wow.
He would not do that if he did not want the practice. He actually went to this local and entered the tournament and competed in a serious environment because he wanted to train to win the Big House, because he wants the streak and he wants to win a tournament this year.
So this is your pick, Big Juan?
If I like gun to head, my pick is Big Juan.
Wow.
Sheesh.
Well, you love to see it. We've talked about this before. You have to you have to account for the one that he's going to win, because he's always going to win one. We don't know why it happens, but that is the pact with the devil, or whatever, the angel. The angel, maybe. And we haven't seen it. I think maybe it'll be Santa Paws or something. DreamHack, I don't know. It doesn't feel like it. I don't know. It's just not this doesn't feel like it's the vibe for it. That being said, something magical always does happen. We're going to see a grand finals that we're going to talk about for a while. We're going to see a Game 10 grand finals between Leffen and Plup. Plup is going to win, and then not going to anything for months. Jettisons. But yeah, I think that like Leffen has always this fucking question mark about him, and he still does, and he's got Mango, a player who's done historically well versus him. All these sets are always so close, but they always end up kind of going in Mango's favor. At that point, you kind of have to give Mango a lot of credit for that, so I think that's a really good path for Mango. And yeah, we've talked so much about Mango, and I don't know. I think that this is not like a tournament that he's going to and like explicitly going to fuck off at. I don't want to give off that's what's like, happening here. I think he's going to try. But I don't know. I'm going to call Leffen there, and then he's got Cody, a matchup that he's beaten before. Cody is amazing, but I believe in the power of team fight tactics or whatever. Leffen distracted by not one game, but two different games from Melee, I think is only going to make him more powerful. You've got Plup. Plup's got Zamu, who that is a player who like we have established has, I don't want to say fallen off, but is definitely going through a little bit of a nadir in terms of kind of bracket winning, like major winning potential. And then Zayn. And I think the Curse of Edmund Bunning is going to affect him right there. We're going to see a banger winners finals. And then we're going to see an all-time classic Game 10 Grands. Actually, Game 10 Grands is going to be Leffen versus Plup, but I think we're going to see a different winners finals. I think that's Cody, and I think Leffen goes through losers. So that's what I'm going to call there. I'm going to call the Leffen versus Plup all-time classic that we're going to see. And we're going to talk about it forever, and Awesome Sauce is going to make a video in a year that's going to hit 2 million views this time. And we're all going to be happy. We're all going to, do that thing we do at Big House when someone wins, and we all like rock back and forth, and we all hold hands and chant Kumbaya, like whatever happened with Amsa won. Except for you, Edwin. You went through some turmoil about a bet that you made, but no bets made today, so maybe you'll feel a little bit better about this eventual Plup victory. Anyway, it seems like we have some technical difficulties for anyone who's listening. Oh my. Hello, Zamu but mobile. Okay, so I think how we're gonna do this, we're almost at the end of the show, and we got almost everything in, is we're going to do some questions. Zamu, we have a question for you. Are you here? Okay, I cannot hear her.
Yeah, we can't hear her at all.
what we can do, we're gonna ask what question, and you can type your response in the chat, and we'll have Edwin read it for you.
Why me?
Edwin, okay, Edwin, why don't you read the question for her?
Sure thing. Zamu, this one is from Stock Money. It's for you. I'm gonna say the question just out loud. For Zamu, hi Queen. What's your personal top 5 of champagne all time, excluding yourself?
It's a tough one. Top 5 for champagne might be Zamu.
Can she hear us? Okay, we can't hear her.
Well, what would she say? You know what? We used to have that classic "What would Magi say?"
Yeah, we did used to have that.
We took that away, but we might have a "What would Zamu say?" So imagine top 5 all time. Well, Shabo must be on there.
Yeah, Shabo would be
PRZ.
Yeah,
Fox capacitor.
That's a great one. Coffee.
I think is 5.
Coffee. Well, yeah, excluding herself. So
Blend Tech.
A Blend Tech. That'd be
it's
a great
Blend Tech,
one.
baby.
That'd be a great answer. I feel like there's someone older that we're missing. These are a lot of the same era. Is there anyone pre Zamu champagne era?
There was like the Fox. It was like Shabo, PRZ, Zamu, and Fox capacitor. But like,
yeah, I remember all the Foxes. Oh, Killablue. Does Killablue get the nod? Or
at number 5, maybe Killablue gets the nod.
Deegs with his crazy summit run.
True.
Deegs is a good one. I think that's what. Yeah, you know what? Let's go with the 4 Foxes. Wait, but that excludes herself, so she's not. So we still have 2 spots.
We don't have 2 spots. Shabo, PRZ.
7
end. Matt R. Okay, so we've got.
Oh, Matt R is a good one. That's
coffee
a throwback.
Can I have coffee in there, please?
Yeah, Zamu, give us permission for
it's gonna
coffee.
Be Thor.
Thor, the link?
That's gonna be Thor.
Well, she didn't say. She doesn't know the 5th, so we're just gonna say coffee. PRZ Shabo 7 end. Is that how you say it? Matt R. And then
Matt R is an old school choice. I didn't know he was from Champaign.
And then coffee. the fan pick. Voted on by the fans. Coffee is number 5. Zamu, hello. Thanks for joining us again. Still cannot hear you.
We can't hear you now, Zamu. But we have another question for you.
We do have another question. This one's not for you though, so this one should be easier to answer.
Oh yeah, sorry, it's not for you, Zamu. This one is for DarkGenex. DarkGenex. Wait, I read the first question.
Yeah, what are you doing, dude?
Yeah.
Justin, this one's also from Stock Money.
Sure.
So he says, "Hi, Queen." No, sorry, that's the other one. He says, "What was the craziest scheme you ever got to implement as a TO? That you never got to implement.
That I never got to implement as a TO.
You're a very scheme-heavy person. I'm sure that there's something that you did get a chance to do.
The craziest scheme that I never got to implement. Like, I can give you the realistic one, or like the most insane one that we just knew was never going to happen. But I'll give you the realistic one. Can I give you 2?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The first one is we were going to run. It was going to be like Nebulous on the Sea or something like that, or Nebulous on the Shore. And it was going to be a tournament in the Intrepid battleship, currently parked in some harbor in New York. And it never went through when Nebulous was looking for a venue. That's one of the crazy schemes. As a
you mean like a gamer cruise kind of thing, but instead of a cruise, it's just literally like
on a battleship.
It's a docked ship.
Yeah. Like, it wouldn't be on the gamer cruise. It wouldn't be like on a cruise, but it would be on a boat, like Melee on a boat.
That's wild.
It would have been crazy. Never happened because we were looking for venues, and it was just like, that is a venue. They do.
Melee's had after parties on boats, but yes,
it's true.
That not a tournament itself. And then have the after party in a convention center.
True. Yeah, we'd have to go. We'd rent out the Javis for the after party, and then rent the Intrepid for the tournament. But that's one of the event. That's one of the things we joked about running a tournament on a blimp, like Kaiba Corp, like Duelist Kingdom style, and then kicking people off of the blimp as they lost. But that was definitely just like a meme. Whereas the Intrepid was actually looked at. I think the craziest scheme as a TO that never came to fruition, that almost did, was during the Hax's nightclub era. And that was when I at the time I was like the secondary, like the second in command at agency, and there was going to be the original Hax's nightclub VIP, which never happened. We were gonna fly out the inventor of synthwave, robots with ray guns, as a DJ for the event, and it was gonna use 2 floors of a hotel and have a live DJ performance by this famous musician. I had nothing to do with this decision, and none of the budgeting that any of the TOs like thought of wanted to go into this. But it was an inch away from happening, and probably would have if COVID didn't happen. So that's probably like the number one craziest thing.
This is what COVID took away from you.
Mm-hmm.
What about any like bracket structures?
Bracket structures?
The boat tournament would have been round robin.
I used to love round robin when I was like when I played a lot more and wanted more experience, and then when I got as malicious as this sounds, when I got better enough to the fact that I was like a second or third seed or a first seed, I started hating round robin because I didn't like playing them many sets.
Don't tell that to the Europeans.
Yeah. I mean, I love Fate. I love the Fate experience. I just don't like round robin. But I do like Fate. I would definitely have gone back to Fate if it weren't for just like travel stuff. But I'm not really a bracket experimenter kind of guy. Like, I definitely just prefer double elimination. Pretty boring. Like, I'm no Coin. Coin's a legend, by the way. Like, I could never do what Coin does. But in regards to bracket stuff, I'm very like by the books double elimination. Like, fuck Waterfall.
Let's get you and Coin together. It'd be crazy.
Be fun.
International.
He'll be at Big House.
In international waters. And there's also like 5 non-elimination Swiss pools that somehow run into triple elimination or something.
And it all runs on time.
And it all runs on time. And then there's a beautiful blog post about it afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting indeed. Anything in the future? Le'Veon Bell?
Any crazy tournament schemes for the future, you're asking? I have a crazy tournament scheme in mind, but I don't think I'm going to reveal it yet.
Interesting. Well, I look forward to seeing it one day. Hopefully if I see a boat tournament.
There's one that's crazy that I can't talk about, and there's one that I can talk about, actually. So I've thought about doing this for a future event, unnamed. So, you know how there's like
Melee
VIP
prison.
Imagine. You know how there's VIP passes for or like VIP like badges at events where you can just go in and like get the free food and like the top players are all there, and you get in if you're like a commentator or a top player or a staff of the event, but like there's no security ever, so people just go in anyway or just bring their friends. So what if you like charged a few $100s to buy a VIP badge? Because like surely someone buys that badge, and that's like a free few $100s for the TOs, right? Like, what if we just had like this VIP badge for sale? That was an idea that I had.
Didn't Gommel try that?
I have no idea. I know Canada Cup did it and people bought it.
Yeah, I think events have done that.
Maybe it's not that crazy after all then.
Yeah, I think events have. I might be wrong on this, but I think events have tried this.
Interesting. They can get to the second deck on the boat. VIP's only on the second deck. Well, very cool. Edwin, do you want to? You did such a great job answering for Zamu when she was away. Do you want to plug her socials?
Yeah.
Do you want to? Zamu, you're very fun on the show. Thank you for being such a great guest. Where can people follow you? I'm going to stop this right here. This is Edwin. Zamu is a very fun guest on the show. Where can people follow her? I think that's a better way to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. So people can follow her at Zamu_SSBM. Yeah, her Twitter is pretty great. She's got a couple other Twitters also, but that's the main one, or maybe just one other Twitter. But that's the main one to follow her is Zamu_SSBM. She posts all the time about Melee and various other stuff, and she streams all the time on twitch.tv/Zamu_SSBM. We probably have to explain this to the listeners, right? Why I'm shilling Zamu's socials.
The podcast listeners who just assuming that she's quiet this entire time, and you're let me speak for her. And the lady will have we already said that we had technical difficulties. Okay. She's not coming back today, unfortunately. Well, maybe we'll have a makeup episode. We'll have one day where it's like Magi for that one half episode, and it'll be like 10 minutes of Zamu. We'll have everyone who bailed out on us early, so we'll just do it all in one episode. But yeah, I think that's it. Does she have Patreon or something? Is she on Medify?
I don't know.
We're not built for this.
No.
Well, she can come back on and
Zamu is on Medify.
Okay. Well,
and Medify.gg/@Zamu.
I asked the wrong person, I guess. Justin, what about you? Where can people find you?
I don't really use socials that much anymore, but I have a Twitter, I have a Blue Sky, I have a TikTok, I have a YouTube. They're all that DarkGenex. I don't have a Threads, so I don't have an Instagram account. So I do not have a Threads.
Man, we're but Threads.
Pretty much any account that any platform I'm on is DarkGenex, unless the account is Riot Games or Epic Games, in which it's DarkGenex Farts. So
your DarkGenex sucks on something, right?
Yes. So I was DarkGenex sucks on Epic Games and on Reddit. And so funnily enough, I got reported after a Fortnite game.
I opened up a can of worms here.
Yeah. So someone reported me after I killed them in a Fortnite game, and Epic Games made me reset my username because my username was harassment. So DarkGenex sucks is a not permitted name on Epic Games. So I changed it to DarkGenex Farts.
Very cool. Follow DarkGenex over on Epic Games and the like. You said Riot as well?
Riot Games for Teamfight Tactics is also DarkGenex Farts.
Follow Justin on Epic Games and Riot Games. Edwin, do we have any information on whether or not Zamu has accounts on either of those?
No, I do not have that information on me at the moment.
What about like an Xbox account?
I don't know why the idea Zamu, she doesn't strike me as an Xbox person. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
She can have an as a trait. She can have an Xbox account.
We do a little Xbox playing.
But not the box.
No, I suppose not. Yeah, we'll have all this information for that makeup episode. I'll make sure to have it all prepared.
Yeah. For the a rain delay game in baseball or whatever. Anyway, actually we can't go yet. Oh my God, the rust has been showing. Was it been a month? We have one more thing.
Oh my goodness!
Touching grass.
Touching grass. I was ready for it.
What are we doing? Touching grass. It's the segment, the unnamed segment known by the fans as Touching Grass, where we talk about something that's been going on in our lives that is not Melee related. I feel like I've had a couple different things going on because it's been so long. Got to see a few friends recently. I got to. Here's a crazy thing. I haven't got to see him just yet because we're making plans. I have a friend from high school. He's on the Boy Genius album. That's the indie super group with Lucy Dacus, famously known for that smash tweet. Julia Baker and Phoebe Bridgers. I found out because I heard from a friend that he got shouted out at the concert. I found out that he was a co-writer on one of the songs. So that was kind of insane. But I got to see some other friends, hang out, go, get good food. I saw Howl's Moving Castle in theaters. But what I've been doing more than anything, is watching sports. I know we've been using sports recently, and I think it's just divulging into like touching turf is the sports segment in touching grass. But I got to do a couple of really cool things. I got to go to a Phillies game, one of the last Phillies games of the regular season, which it was my brothers and sister, my brother and sisters, which is kind of a rare time that we all get to hang out in one place. So that was a really nice treat. We won, so that was really fun. And then because of an anonymous benefactor, who shall go unnamed, I got to go to my first Philadelphia Eagles game. And the fact that I did not put sunscreen on and got really bad sunburn is not due to this anonymous benefactor. But I had a wonderful time. I'm so glad that I got to go. It was a really nice treat. And I can't mention this without mentioning the Phillies are currently hitting fucking dingers at a literally historic rate. We are doing pretty well in the postseason, so it's been a real treat to get to watch another possible World Series run. Fuck, I think I jinxed it, but whatever. But it's been a treat to watch some nice playoff baseball and to hit dingers like no others. So that's what I've been up to. Edwin, what do you think Zamu's been up to?
I feel like a lot's changed for her.
There has been since the last time we talked to her. There's a lot different.
Yeah,
there's a lot that has changed. Go into it. Discuss it.
I don't know. I don't think I can speak for her on this one.
Okay, we'll bring it up in the makeup episode. Okay, what's been going on with you though, Edwin Butter?
A lot of sports, and definitely a lot of sports.
Okay, let's sandwich this then. We'll get back to you. We just can't do sports twice in a row. Justin, what's been going on with you? If you say sports, I'm gonna fucking blow a gasket.
It's not sports. That's like the one thing I don't do. I'm like the jack of all trades. I do a million things. Sports is just not one of them.
We should get into sports. Well, I'm into sports.
I used to play tennis. I went to the U.S. Open like 2 years ago or so. It was fun.
We'll go to a Mets game.
I'm down.
And I hate the Mets, but
I'm still down. But I've been doing a couple of things. I'm going on an end of year trip to Japan, Korea, and Hong Kong. So I've been planning that, making reservations for stuff. That's been fun. I've got a lot of travel for the next couple of weeks that I've been planning and doing, and also been traveling a lot in general. So just a lot of reservation stuff I've been doing. I went to Comic-Con last weekend with a couple of friends, Toussaint being one of them, and had a blast, just fun walking around, etc. The one thing that I've been doing a lot of recently, though, I've been rewatching a bunch of Godzilla movies. I'm trying to rewatch every single Godzilla movie because I loved Godzilla as a kid. I used to go to G-Fest with my dad, and I think it was in Rosemont, Illinois, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh wow!
And it was really fun. I won the Godzilla Unleashed World Championships twice when I was younger there. So that's my original gaming expertise. Yeah. But watching a bunch of Godzilla movies, they are very mixed. I definitely remember ones that I saw as a kid and I thought they were pretty good. And then I rewatched them as an adult and I'm like, these movies are ass. Oh my God, these are terrible. All Monsters Attack, which is about a spin-off about Godzilla's child, Manila, might be one of the worst movies I've ever seen. It is terrible. But then other movies like Godzilla 1954, masterpiece. Shin Godzilla, masterpiece. And then,
is there a difference between Godzilla and Gojira?
Do you mean by the character name or the movie?
The movie.
Yes. So Gojira is the original 1954 Godzilla, and it is IMO a masterpiece. It's one of my favorite movies, probably one of my top 10 favorite movies. It is probably one of, if not the best monster movie ever created. Horrifying movie, holds up really well. You can't tell it was made in 1954. It holds up so well. 1956, Godzilla King of the Monsters, also known as Godzilla. They added an American character. I think it was Raymond something. Might have been. I want to say it's Burr, but I don't remember. But they added
Raymond Burr was an actor from that era.
It was probably Raymond Burr then. They added an American narrator. He wasn't in Rear Window? I
believe so.
I'll take your word on it. But 1956, Godzilla King of the Monsters. They shot a bunch of footage with Raymond Burr. They basically dubbed over all of the lines of all the characters, removed some of the subplots, and instead of making the viewers figure out what was going on and having the mystery, because a lot of the original Godzilla 1954 is the people trying to figure out what is happening to all these ships that are being eaten. Why are all these people disappearing? Why are these cities destroyed.
So there's like a mystery involved.
Yeah, it's a mystery. Like in the future Godzilla movies, when it gets more campy, it's like, okay, Godzilla is like this dinosaur guy, and he's gonna like fight.
What if
monsters.
It wasn't Godzilla, and that's like they reveal? Wait, it's actually not that 100-foot monster in the sea.
Yeah. What if it wasn't? We don't know. They don't know if it's
this
Godzilla.
guy.
Yeah.
Justin, tell me the woat and the goat of the Godzilla movies.
I mean, I said
it.
One.
Yeah.
But you mentioned
Godzilla, and then Godzilla's child.
Yeah, all monsters attack is probably the woat, and Godzilla 54 is the goat. But let me give more obscure ones. I think that those are really like easy ones to note as like the best and worst.
Give us 2 more. And then let's move on.
And also like
Edwin's gonna talk about every sports game that happened in the last month and how depressed he is.
The other really bad Godzilla movie most people talk about is the American remake. I think it was like Roland Emmerich. I don't know how to pronounce the name, but his Godzilla movie, which is considered one of the worst, but I'm not going to say that one either. Best and worst Godzilla movies. I think the best Godzilla movie, like
this is like the Goose Con version of it, right?
Yes, the Goose Con version. Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack, made in I think 2001 or 2002. It is one of the most. It's an original Godzilla plot. The whole idea is that Godzilla is a villain again. He's like destroying the town. So they hire, or they don't hire, but like the ancient Japanese monks, they use their rituals and summon these spirits of these monsters, Baragon, Mothra, and for the first time as a hero, King Ghidorah. It's the first time and the only time in the series he's been a good guy. And they all fight Godzilla, and really good fights, very compelling plot. You don't know what's going to happen. There's good imagery overall. Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack. Really good. They also bring back Baragon, who hasn't been seen since Destroy All Monsters, I believe. So, good movie. Woat. Worst of all time movie besides that one. This is hard. I think Godzilla Raids Again is actually really bad. That's the Godzilla movie, the second Godzilla movie that came out after the first Godzilla movie. And it introduces a second monster, Anguirus, which is this like turtle guy with a bunch of like spikes on his back. And it's just like they try to keep the same like horrific tone of the first Godzilla, but they make it really goofy with the characters and the tones all over the place. And like part of the original reason the first Godzilla movie is so effective is that you see like these sluggish, slow movements from Godzilla, this towering, hulking beast. They like slow down some of the shots to show you like this thing is like this very massive titan that he cannot be stopped. In Raids Again, they don't care. The movie was made in 6 months. It was a fucking cash grab. So all the shots, you can tell it's a rubber suit. They don't give a fuck. All the sets were made in like a month, and it just doesn't work very well. Like it's a classic. It's okay, but in comparison to the original Godzilla, it's ass.
Justin, you have a lot of thoughts on this, I can tell, so I don't mean to set you off further. I've got 4 questions for you about Godzilla, and I just want you to rapid fire give me answers.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on the allegories of it? It's the bomb, right? It's the bomb?
Yeah.
The bomb?
The original Godzilla movie is the like. What do you mean by my thoughts on it? Like, what my thoughts on the allegory?
Do you think it was okay to drop the bomb?
Oh, you want me to go that?
No, I don't want you to get into that. I wanted to make sure it was the. I want to know what the allegory was, because I believe it was the bomb. I wasn't sure. Okay, second question. MF Doom released an album under the name King Ghidorah, Take Me to Your Leader. I think it's 2001. What are your thoughts on that album, if any?
I've never heard it.
It's very good. Number 3, what are your thoughts on the song with P. Diddy that samples Led Zeppelin that was released on the Godzilla 99 soundtrack?
Never heard it.
And number 4, what are your thoughts on the allegations that P. Diddy put in the hit for Tupac Shakur?
No comment.
Interesting. Okay. Edwin, same 4 questions to you.
What's the first one?
Forget the first one. Second one, MF Doom, King Ghidorah, Take Me to Your Leader.
Awesome album.
Yeah.
Very good.
What do you think about that song that samples what is it called? Something Come? I mean Come C-O-M-E. It's too late. What's it called? It samples Cashmere. P. Diddy. You know that one?
When you describe it like that, it sounds familiar, but I don't remember like what it sounds like other than Kashmir getting sampled.
And then lastly, what are your thoughts on the allegations that he put up the hit for Tupac Shakur?
I believe it. Yeah, sure. Let's go with that. I'll gladly endorse a conspiracy theory. Yeah, I gladly endorse a conspiracy theory that I haven't read into at all.
It's by the guy who. So the I don't think it's the FBI. There's the LAP Las Vegas PD, I guess, because he was killed in Vegas. I think the Vegas PD are like, we have our killer. Like they finally figured it out, and that guy was like, yeah, Diddy paid for this. Now, how real is any of this? Who knows? It's got a little more credence than a conspiracy theory, though. Thank you very much. That being said, he did marry Bigfoot. That was also alleged. What have you been up to? Tell me about all the sports that you've been watching and going to.
I've been going to see a couple of Patriots games. I've been watching a lot of Patriots game. It's made me want to drink bleach. It's pretty depressing. I even splurged.
Who that you have to go through this for like 2 seasons.
Yeah, but this season is like a whole different level of bad. I briefly had like a sad moment where I was so upset about like none of the blowout games, but I was so sad that the Patriots lost like the second game of the season in a pretty like tight competitive game that I thought that like I got genuinely emotional thinking about the fact that my dog would not witness a Super Bowl victory. And it was like the most unhinged level, like unreasonable level of sad ever. I was actually like getting choked up thinking about it. When I expressed this to my spouse was like, your dog doesn't know like what football is. And it just like shocked me at how the fact that like I even thought this. Anyways, no, I mean, I've still been watching a bunch of football. I purchased Madden, so I've been playing that also. But it's kind of funny because like I've been trying to fix.
You just said you went to multiple Madden. Patriots games, and yet Madden is the splurge.
Yeah, I just bought it.
$60.
I mean, yeah. It's like it's funny because like I haven't bought a Madden game or like played one in a long time, so I'm like very rusty. But because I'm in control, like I can still kind of help the Patriots or whomever I'm playing be better. But I'm still like bad at the game, so I'm throwing picks to the linebackers like every 15 passes or like near picks or whatever. But I'm having a good time. It's fun. My initial way of coping was watching old playoff games, but then I got like really sad, like midway through. So I stopped that when it became unhealthy. So lately my nights have been like, if I'm not watching the Patriots or football or something, I'm usually like doing franchise mode in Madden or cooking.
Played your dog. See? Yep. See, Arnold? This is what it looks like if they win.
Yeah, you met Arnold. He'll probably like he'll probably just like go on the floor and like stretch out in the rug. Oh, I got a new rug upstairs also. I guess I just like, splurge purchasing a bunch of stuff.
Look at you, Madden, and the new rug. You're going crazy.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Next week I'll talk about the Halloween party that I'm setting up. So that'll be fun.
Can't wait. Everyone come back next week for this Halloween party talk. So this is kind of, we haven't done an episode in a little bit, and we're kind of getting into the zone where our producer gets mad at us for about to end the show and then spending another 20 minutes in the end of it. So I think we were on the way out and we nearly got there except for touching grass, but I'm going to call it. Let's move on out here very soon. Before we can do so, we have to plug. Zamu, we plugged for her. Justin, you plugged. But we've got some stuff to plug, obviously. We've got these episodes that go up on YouTube. They go up on the Melee Stats archive. You can watch them live at twitch.com/MeleeStats. We have MeleeStats.co where we put up weekly articles, and we've got daily results reporting on Twitter.com/MeleeStatsPod. And if you have a keen eye, you might have seen that there's a little bit more to the Melee Stats empire than just this. Over on YouTube at Melee Stats, we have long-form content. And if you are a $5 tier member of patreon.com/MeleeStats, you can see our new long-form video. It's coming out next week. We're going to talk about Big House. We're going to talk about the video. We're going to kind of go into that next week. Apparently, this Halloween party we're going to talk about. So we're going to have a big episode next week. But yes, if you are someone who wants to watch the next long form video that we're putting out, and it's not going to be some 5-minute dinky video. If you, I think it's worth your $5. You can do so right now on Patreon. Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm very excited I want to just spend more time talking about it because, finally getting it released is something that's kind of been really important, big deal for us. But we will talk about that next week. We'll be able to stave off for a whole week. But yeah, if you want to watch our new video, that is available. So you can do so patreon.com/MeeleeStats if you want to watch it, or if you just want to support us in the best way possible. Justin, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for having me.
Apparently you talked to Kadoran for a little bit, and now we kept you for 2.some hours. So I appreciate you being on, Zamu. She's not here, but we did appreciate having her on. So I thought I had a very fun episode. Thank you so much for being on. And thank you so much for watching us. We'll be back next week to talk about Big House, talk about our new video, and talk about what can only be described as one of the best Halloween parties of all time, presumably. We will see you then. Peace.